Hello and welcome to my channel Tall Talks from a Short Lady. In this video, I'm going to be talking about communication in organizations. So the first thing I would like to do is define an organization. So to me, an organization is simply a group of people who come together and work towards a specific goal. Now, since I'm a teacher, I can take the example of my college where we have students, we have teachers, and we also have the management staff. Now, all of us work together towards the goal of giving the best possible education in the country to our students, and the ultimate goal is to give them a formal degree. Now, whenever a group of people come together, they need to communicate. And this communication is just like the blood that flows in our veins. Now, without blood, a human being cannot survive because it carries essential oxygen and nutrients to all the vital organs. So, just like blood works for life, similarly, communication is the lifeblood of an organization. And in fact, I can go ahead and say that without communication, there can be no organization. So, moving on, I want to talk about the prime objective of communication. In fact, the only objective of communication in a general term would be to understand other people and to be understood by them. But when we're talking about the objectives of communication in an organization, they are a little more specific. Now, there are two objectives of communication within any organization. Now, the first one is called the provision of information, which is needed to transfer any kind of knowledge related to the job. And the second objective is the provision of attitude, which is needed to coordinate any kind of group effort within the organization. So let me go to the next slide and have a deeper look at these two objectives. And the first one, which talks about the provision of information, allows the employer to train, educate, and inform the workforce, maybe to give them instructions, educate them about the different policies a company would have, maybe talk to them about the safety procedures they need to follow, and also inform them about the decisions a company is taken. For example, during the pandemic, a lot of companies downsized. Now, it is their moral responsibility and duty to inform the workforce of these decisions and the reasons behind them. Moving on, we're going to be talking about the provision of attitude. Now, the provision of attitude allows the employer to motivate, persuade, and influence the workforce to work well in teams, to maintain the relationship between teams and between colleagues. It also encourages self-expression, where it allows you to come up with new ideas and share it with the management. Now, once your ideas are actually taken up and implemented, then what happens is that it stimulates you to work better and to move more towards personal advancement. So, if I talk about the provision of information, it allows the workforce and it gives them the skills to work better. And the provision of attitude allows the workforce or gives the workforce the will to work better. Next, I'll be talking about the flow of communication in organizations. Now, whenever we talk of an organization, it is understood that the lion's share of communication will be formal in nature. But that does not mean that there is no informal communication. Now, we'll come to the informal part a little later, but first I would like to talk about the formal part. Now, under formal communication, it can again be subdivided into external and internal communication. Now, moving ahead with the example of a college, if the college gets in touch with the central university and sends any kind of communication, then it can be taken as an instance of external communication. Whereas the conducting of lectures, maybe meetings between different departments and notices sent out to the students can be examples of internal communication. Now, internal communication can be subdivided further into horizontal communication, which means communication between people of the same level, and we have vertical communication. Now, when we talk of the word vertical, it means at a 90-degree angle. So the angle, the arm can be facing upwards or it can be facing downwards. So if we talk of vertical communication again has upward communication, which would relate to people of a lower strata, communicating people higher up. And the other side of it is the downward communication, where people of a higher level communicate down to people at a lower level. Moving on to the right side, where we have informal communication. Another word for informal communication would be the grapevine. It's an informal term, and I'll be talking more about a grapevine further ahead in the slides. Moving on, in this slide, I'm going to be talking about downward communication, though I have started the labeling at formal communication and how under formal we have internal communication and how under internal we have vertical communication. And under vertical, going to be looking specifically at downward communication. So, what do I mean by downward communication? Is communication that comes from the management to the employees, and some of the functions of downward communication would include maybe orientation on company cultures and policies, on the job training, instructions on safety procedures, which might be essential for industries like the health industry or maybe in the chemical factories and all. Next, downward communication would also involve talking to the employees about the different policies on compliance issues, like how you cannot, share sensitive information about your company with other competitor companies. Then we have information on employee rights and benefits, maybe your number of leaves, the kind of Mediclaim coverage that you get. Performance feedback. This is a major part of downward communication where you have to inform the employees about how they're performing. And then you should be able to justify the kind of incentive appraisal you're giving based on the kind of feedback that you've given the employees. Now, if the downward communication is clear, there is transparency in the communication, then it has a lot of benefits. And the benefits, the first one is that it increases job satisfaction. If you are happy in a company, then you will obviously work better and the productivity increases. If the productivity increases, the turnover increases, and obviously the company stands to make higher profits. Now, the profits are higher, then the kind of bonus or dividends the employees get will also be higher. And, if you're totally happy working in a company, then you will feel motivated to go to work every day. So absenteeism would decrease. And also, any kind of grievance that you have against the company or its management would go down. I can give the example of Tata Group and how people who join Tata Group, they rarely ever leave the company and go to another company because they're totally happy working for the Tata Group. Moving on, in this slide, I'm going to be talking about upward communication, which comes under vertical, which comes under internal, and internal, which comes under formal communication. So, what do I mean by upward communication? Is anything that goes from the subordinates to the superiors. Now, some of the functions would include a performance report. Every team leader reports to the leader above him. Then suggestion boxes where employees put in their ideas and suggestions. Then we have feedback forms circulated by the management people. We also have employee satisfaction surveys which are conducted maybe once a year or biannually. And then we have focus groups. Sometimes the management would call for small groups and open discussion with these groups to know what is going on. So these are known as focus groups. Now, if the upward communication is, paid heed to, if upward communication is respected and welcome, then there are a lot of benefits to it. The first one, it helps management understand problems at the grassroots level. Now, for our college, our students were getting exhausted with online lectures starting from 8 in the morning and going on right till 3 or 4 in the evening. So when they gave us the feedback this semester, we have lowered, it decreased the number of hours, contact hours we have with the students, and as a result, students are very happy and they're performing better. Now, it also helps management to make better policies, just like a college changed some of its policies. Next, it encourages ideation among the employees. If our employees are happy and they know that the management is going to listen to our suggestion, they will feel motivated to come up with better suggestions and ideas. And also, it increases a sense of association with the organization. Just like I gave the example of Tata Group, and how once people start working for Tata, they're proud to be a part of the Tata Group. They associate with the group, and these are some of the benefits of good upward communication. Moving on to the next slide, I'll be talking about horizontal communication, which is a part of internal communication, which again is a part of formal communication. So, horizontal communication would be communication between peers, and some of the functions would be to perform on the job duties. Different departments would need to work within their teams. Then also to solve problems. Any problem comes up, you need to talk, discuss, coordinate, and solve it. You can discuss and coordinate on important issues. There are different departments in a company. For example, a software company would have a team of developers, a team of testers, maybe quality assurance people. So all of these teams need to discuss and coordinate on important issues, and prepare meetings, presentations, and also make requests for assistance. Some particular department needs help from another department, you reach out to them. These are all examples of peer-to-peer communication. Now, benefits of good peer-to-peer communication is that it finds effective solutions to problems. It makes for faster and seamless processing of work. Next is, it builds teams, and it gives you a sense of solidarity where you feel you can depend on each other. And it provides a viable support system in crisis. I know of most companies how they have started running a vaccination drive. Not only that, they have dedicated teams who are supplying food to the families where the entire family is down with COVID. Now, these are some of the benefits of good horizontal communication. Now, I'll be moving on to formal and external communication. Now, this part of any organization is actually very important, because this is where you meet out, or you reach out to your customers, to your clients, and this is where you make your image. Now, in terms of formal external communication, you have things like e-marketing, or requests for quotations to different vendors, suppliers. Then we keep on hearing about proposals for acquisitions and mergers. And next, I'm going to be talking about press releases. I'll take an example. A few years back, if you remember correctly, then Johnson & Johnson had come into the public eye because some of their baby products were found to be carcinogenic, which causes cancer. And they in fact had to come face the world, apologize for whatever poor products that they have in the market. And they even gave the promise to the customers that they're going to retrieve all the products that are there in the market right now, improve their research and development, and come up with better products which are not carcinogenic. So these are press releases. Then we have letters to customers. To give a very good example, last year, Mahindra Thar, they released their Thar 2020, vehicle, and out of that, around 1,600 vehicles, which were of the diesel variant, were found to have some defects. So they called all the entire 1,600 vehicles that had already gone out to the customers by sending them letters and telling them how they need to get back to the company to get the problem sorted. Then we have CSR drives. This is corporate social responsibility. Now, most companies, of course, all companies are there to make a profit, but they also have a responsibility to the society at large, other than the responsibility to themselves and the employees. Now, this is known as a CSR drives. Most companies do a hogwash in the name of CSR, like they plant a few flowers or flowering plants on the dividers and roads. They post a few posters, or maybe once a year they go to an orphanage and help the kids. But real CSR are done by good companies, like, for example, Tata Motors. Now, in India, eunuchs have no, you can say, no recognition. They don't have any kind of formal recognition, neither a ration card or a passport or a voter's ID. I think Tamil Nadu is the first state which has started giving them some kind of official documentation. Now, Tata is a company which I remember even when I was young. They had a specific number of jobs set aside only for eunuchs. Now, this is what I mean by real responsibility to the society is not just for show, but something they're doing it, and hence today Tata is doing so well. Now, a company's image is as good as its external communication, and the benefits of good external communication, first of all, it promotes sales and profits. It wins back disgruntled customers. So all the customers who had bought from Tar, if they were unhappy with the performance, the company has worked hard towards winning back those customers. Then good external communication, it promotes goodwill. I keep giving the example of Tata. And then it creates social awareness. Good external communication also helps the society at large. And next, I'm going to be moving to informal communication. Now, informal communication is also known as grapevine. Now, grapevine, it refers to the rumors that circulate through informal channels within an organization. Now, grapevine, it spreads like wildfire. If a company gives out a formal notice, it takes time, maybe a day or two, for all the employees to know about it. But if it's a rumor, you can rest assured that in the next 10 or 15 minutes, everybody within the organization will know about it. But the problem is that it's unreliable. You do not know, who is the source of that information, and most of the time the information has been passed along so many times that it is distorted and hardly recognizable from the original information. And of course, the source is untraceable. You do not know how authentic the source is because there is no documentation of any sort in informal grapevine communication. Now, when we talk of informal communication in an organization, it is a proportion. Now, more open the communication, less is the reliance of grapevine. So you can say that the relationship between formal and informal communication with an organization is inversely proportional, which means that if people are well informed formally, they don't need to rely on informal channels. But the moment the formal channels are obscure, or they are not transparent enough, then people have no other choice other than to fall back upon hearsay and gossip, which in other words is known as the grapevine. Now, the story of grapevine is very interesting. It has come up, and you might have come across this idiom which says, heard it through the grapevine. Now, this term was originated during the United States Civil War, which was in the 1960s. And at that time, telephone had still not been invented. So most of the communication was done through telegraph, and the telegraph wires were hung loosely from trees, and that is because there were not many telegraph poles available in the military areas, and they constantly had to shift base from one place to other. So they were forced to hang up these wires from tree top instead of proper telegraph poles, and hence the stringing produced a lot of disturbance while the message was being conducted, and the message was gobbled most of the time. So you might be transmitting one information, but by the time people get it, it might have been converted into something completely different, and hence it is known as the grapevine, because the strings or the telephone wires would look like vines strung together. So with that, I come to the end of this session. For other topics on communication, please refer to the description box below. And the name of my channel is Tall Talks from a Short Lady. I'll say thank you now.